Now let's look at the second typical question that we have chosen from GATE 2021. The statement looks pretty big, but it's a very easy situation, mind you. We'll walk you through. First, we'll try and understand it. And then I will also tell you how to reason out things so that you should make no calculation whatsoever, still can guess the correct answer. Very easy. Now, one of the things that you got to understand are the stipulations while you are awarded marks in a typical examination. What does the question say? It says if your first question is wrong, then you will get 0 marks. If the first question is answered correctly and the second question is not answered correctly, then obviously you will get the marks for the first question. And then you're also given the fact that if both the questions are answered correctly, then you would get the combined marks. Okay, this is very clear. And also many students in fact get into a confusion as to whether I should start from A or B, whether I should deem A as the first question, as B as the first question. No, that must be made very clear. When the examiner says first question, it is your first question. It is not the question in which the examiner has arranged the questions. You cannot say that I would attach question A the tag of first question and I would attach B the tag of second question. That is not the intention. Whichever question you would like to choose to answer, it is entirely your prerogative. But however, the evaluation is going to be governed by these rules. Suppose if somebody starts with question B, then that becomes the first question for that student. If somebody starts with question A, that becomes first question for that particular student. That is why if you read the question very clearly tells you the order in which the student must answer in order to get the maximum marks. That is why if you look at the choices also, A and then B, and then B or then A. So you are given 2 methods of answering because there are only 2 questions. Either you can choose A as your first question, B as your second question. So we will look at the GATE method, which can be easily employed to make no calculations whatsoever. You can easily guess the answer. But however, we will go by the conventional approach. So how do you go about this particular thing? There are only 2 possibilities. Either your first set of questions be pertaining to A, or your first question may be pertaining to B. So let's take a case where you are incepting your first question as A. All right, this is case number 1. There are only 2 cases. Let me tell you that either you can start from A and then go to B, or you can start from B and then go to A. But whichever is going to be your first question, if that goes wrong, then you are going to get 0 marks. All right, so that is very important. So now let's say we can make one more column for marks. Let's say your A, B. A is going to be your first question. Then we'll consider BA. All right. So now if you are considering this order, so let us say that you start with question A and that turns out to be correct, and the question B turns out to be wrong. I'm using the symbolism W for saying wrong and C for correct. All right. And therefore, since your first question is correct, you are lucky. You are going to get marks for your first question, which is 10. And then if I say that my second question and the first question and the second question both are correct, then what does the rule say? The combined marks would be awarded. Of course, we'll have to take probabilities into account to calculate the effective one. If I say my first question is wrong, the second question is correct, obviously you get a big 0. Very clear from the stipulation. And if at all, if you say that my first question is also wrong, the last question is also wrong, it's a trivial case. So you would go out absolutely disappointed because you are earning no marks whatsoever. So how do you calculate this, the effective or the total marks in this method of answering from A to B? It's very clear that the probabilities are given. And one important thing that you'll have to notice that it is very clearly given that the questions are independent. Okay, So assume that the questions are independent. Let me underline that very, very important phrase. That is why when you are considering the simultaneous occurrence of these two events, you can in fact use the product of probabilities, because these are the four simultaneous occurrences. So when the failures occur together, of course, you are not concerned. When the first is a failure, the second is a success, you are not concerned. But these two simultaneous occurrences concern you, because one is correct, one is wrong, both are correct. So therefore, when you calculate the total probability of earning these marks, you are actually going for the product of probability, right? Because these two have to happen simultaneously, and therefore, since these two are independent, you are going to multiply the probability that you have for question A with probability that you have for question B appropriately. Here you are going to use success probability, failure probability. Here you are going to use success probability and success probability, correct? And always remember, if I say P is my success probability, my failure probability is 1 minus P. So if I say this is my success probability, and if I want to add my failure probability, it would be 0.2 and it would be 0.5. Clear? So that is what is to be understood. Now what is going to be my first situation? These two events occurring simultaneously. So that means my marks is 10. My success probability is 0.8. Remember, because I'm talking about question number 1. So my success probability is 0.8. And then it has to be simultaneously multiplied by failure probability of the second question, because these two are occurring as an event. All right. So therefore it is 0.5. Next, plus my success probability and success probability both have to be the same here, because here it is 0.8 and 0.5 both have to be used here, and the total marks that I can get is 30. So in this event, both are successful and occurring simultaneously. So therefore it is quite commonsensical that I am going to use success probability for both the cases. This is the success probability, this is the failure probability, this is the success probability, this is also the success probability. So what you are going to get 4 marks, because 8 5s are 40, that is into 10, so 4, and here also 40, and then it is 30 into 4, 12. So you are indeed getting 16. You don't have to make any calculations. Of course, you can guess the answer also without calculations. I'll come to that. But then we'll also verify if at all, if it is B to A, what exactly you are going to get. So this is very, very clear. What we did, we wrote the order. We said the first question has to be correct. We need not consider these two, because once you say that the first question is wrong, there is no question of marks. But just for clarity, I have included. And when I say first question is correct, second question is wrong, you get 10. And when these two are correct, you get 30. But what is the probability that this event characterized by these two events occurs, sub-events occurs? So that is what is got by the product of success and failure. Here the product of success and success. And of course the total marks 4 plus 12, that is 16. So this is correct. Okay. Let's also verify, because sometimes what happens, more than one correct answer would be correct. But of course here that question does not arise, because they clearly say maximize her expected marks. Because if you looked at the choice C, it makes no sense. I will explain you why in the shortcut method. It is 22, and if you compare other two, they are actually smaller than 16. So you can very well omit those choices. But however, for the calculation sake, I'll do that, and I'll tell you with no calculation whatsoever how exactly you are going to crack this situation. So now, having done from A to B, now let me make B as my first question. Clear? So how exactly I'm going to do? I'm going to repeat what I have done previously. So this is going to be B and then A. Earlier it was AB, now it is BA. And then if I say that this has to be correct and this is wrong, then what is the total marks I'm likely to get? 20. Of course, it depends on with what probability these two occur simultaneously. But the maximum marks that I get awarded is 20, because you can see question B has 20. And if I say that both are correct, the maximum marks I can get awarded is 30. And if I say this is wrong, this is correct, 0. And if I say this is wrong, this is also wrong, that is 0. All right. But for the first case, what is the success probability? It is 0.5. 20 into 0.5. And for A, I have to use the failure probability, which is obviously 0.2. And of course, it is 0.5. This is failure probability. This is success probability. Remember that. So therefore, it is 20 into 0.5 into 0.2, because the first question A is failing. For here, my first question itself is B. That's very important. Plus, what about the next one? It is 30. And here, we are saying that both are going to succeed. That is 0.8. Earlier, we found that this is 12. And this is nothing but 2. 12 plus 2 is 14. So this we cannot account for. If you are going from B to A, you are just getting only 14 marks, which I cannot consider, because the intention of the student is to maximize. So obviously, your answer is this. Clear? You just had to check for AB and BA, and you are arriving at the answer. But how do you solve in a gate situation? So one thing you will have to understand very, very clearly, that whether you start from A to B or B to A, you cannot get 22 marks as the maximum marks. How do you say that? For example, even if I say that I am going to succeed in both, if I add these to 30 into 0.5 into 0.8, I'm just going to go to 12. I'm just going to go to 12. And if at all I have to consider this as the maximum marks, then I will have to consider the failure probability of this. So that means you cannot get 22. And even if I consider this as 10, there is no possibility that I will be crossing 20, right? So the maximum marks that you can get by looking at the data itself, you can decide that it cannot be 22. And most commonsensically, which has the higher probability of solving 0.8? That should be your first question, right? It's a matter of common sense that you cannot go for 0.5, which is relatively much lower. If the first question goes 0, you get a big 0. So therefore, it's a matter of common sense that you would incept your approach, rather your attempt, from the second situation. So that is from the first situation. And from the first situation, you are approaching, which is the maximum marks, that is 16 marks. You can straight away reason this out, but once you reason it out, verifying is going to be very, very easy. You can do that in few seconds. Just you don't even have to write this table. Consider 10 and 30 as two cases, and then you can make the calculation. That is how in GATE you must think and you must look at the data as if you're looking at a cricket ball as if it is a football. So that means every nuance that is hidden there has to be unraveled or taken out. And if you did that, things become very, very easy, because you can see here the examiner has deliberately repeated here, that is A and B expected marks is 14, B and A expected marks is 14, but what is repeated is A and B twice, one with 16, one with 14. But most of the times, the repeated question would be one of the choices. But here we have reasoned out that it is indeed the choice to check. So you just have to verify this. But if you go with your gut feeling also, it would be correct. Suppose you don't want to make any calculations whatsoever. But however, it is always better that you make at least some basic calculation. Of course, here the numbers are very, very easy. But in some cases, the numbers may be slightly weird. So you will have to do that. So with that, let's move on and look at one more GATE situation.